and manipulated by anybody with the willpower to stand up and speak in a way that is charismatic. Anyone able to take to a podium and say, I know you, I agree with you, now do as I say. Trying to change the way kids think as opposed to teaching them knowledge, teaching them facts, teaching them science and history and math, and letting their minds work on their own, letting their creativity stay intact, allowing them to form their own opinions based on reality. None of that is part of Common Core. None of that is the reality of this system. And all of that is the direct result of progressives, of socialists, of communists taking control of the system through the education branch, ignoring you and going for your children. Hitler did the same thing. He had many youth programs. He encouraged children to report on their parents. It's hard to be a political dissident when your own child could be the one turning you in. And that's reality under Common Core. That is a reality that has allowed us to get to the point to where a surgeon general thinks your gun ownership is a health issue, that your gun ownership is the concern of a pediatrician. It's this same group of thinkers that have polluted economics so much that people believe you can create something out of nothing. That people believe that two negatives don't hurt. Two wrongs don't make a right unless you're in Keynesian economics. These are a group of people that believe, well, if the economy's not just working, let's force it to. These people are arrogant enough to believe that they can control the entire purchasing power, purchasing choices of the American people. And what's worse is they're getting more control, and it's all thanks to Common Core. Now, this may sound conspiratorial, but how else would you define it? How else would you describe these ideas being put in the heads of children? How else would you describe people being taught to be guilty based on their race? Being taught to apologize for what they are, as opposed to living and succeeding for who they are. For teaching people not to think, for teaching people not to be free. And not only that they shouldn't be free, but they ought not want to be. This is the reality of Common Core. And this is the reality of the education system that Jeb Bush supports. And that's just one bad choice for president. If you want another example, look at Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio would appeal to the Latino vote. Marco Rubio was a Tea Party darling, right up until he wasn't. And go figure, Marco Rubio would be the guy who decides NSA spying needs a permanent increase. Spying on the American people? Having your privacy violated? If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about? That's Marco Rubio. That is the depth to which that man has sunk. He is now firmly in league with John McCain and Mitch McConnell. He's probably also as firmly protected in his Senate seat. But that man cannot be the president of a free people. No more than John McCain could have. No more than Jeb Bush could be. No more than Mitt Romney should be. In fact, there's really only one real choice. There's really only one candidate that even comes close to being a freedom candidate. There's really only one candidate that you can look at and firmly say, this guy could really save the country. There's only one person out there right now, just right now, there's really only one candidate that has thrown his hat in the ring that agrees with Ronald Reagan that the spirit of the Republican Party is libertarianism. That the cause of the Republican Party is the cause of freedom. Now, whether or not the Republicans are following that mantra, whether or not the conservatives are following that mantra, whether or not the politicians in any sense are following that mantra, there is one politician who comes close. That's Rand Paul. He's not perfect. Rand Paul is not the politician we need, but he's the one we got. And quite frankly, if he doesn't win the nomination, I'll campaign against whoever gets it for the GOP. I will rail day and night against that person, and I will have no problem showing all of you what kind of an idiot's about to get elected. That is assuming, of course, that Hillary doesn't win, and she very well could. People seem to forget that she was kicked off Watergate for corruption and inappropriate behavior. People seem to forget about their ties to China, the Clinton family. People also seem to forget about the items and gifts being stolen from the White House. People seem to forget about her lack of honesty as Secretary of State, as a presidential candidate for that matter. People seem to forget that she's done nothing great in her entire political career, and people seem to forget that she was elected a senator for New York after moving from Arkansas to the White House. People seem to forget that she had done nothing but be a corrupt lawyer before she was First Lady of Arkansas, and then First Lady of the United States, and then Senator, and then Secretary of State. And she may very well win. And she'll be Clinton 2.0. And Bill could very well continue with his shenanigans. He could very well continue his sexcapades across the nation, across the world. He could continue flying on the jets of billionaire sex criminals. And he'd be the first man, the first husband, the first gentleman, if you will. I don't know how the media is going to brand it yet, but it might be the first spouse. Probably the first gentleman. Probably. But who knows? But I'll tell you this. I think America's sick and tired of political dynasties. And I think that the Americans that aren't sick of it, they need to hear from people like us. They need to have it explained to them in a way that they can relate to. But more than that, the Americans out there that would vote for Hillary, for Jeb Bush, for Mitt Romney, more than anything, those Americans, they need to come to these conclusions on their own. And you can help them do that. You could help with that. I can help with that. And together, folks like you and me, we can actually do our part. And we can make a real difference. And I think the absolute best way to handle that is to ask questions. if you feel like you get into political arguments and never get anywhere, if you feel like you're ending friendships, if you feel like you're that jerk that's really into politics, but you're just not able to win anyone over, the trick is to ask questions. Don't tell people what you think, or if you do, don't point out specific issues until they ask you. Just ask questions. When people are forced to think critically, when people are forced to put themselves to the test and answer the questions put to them on their beliefs, why they believe X, Y, and Z, what led them to believe that, what's just, what is moral about that. When they are forced to put those beliefs into words, they might find out they're not quite as on that issue as they thought. They're not quite as staunch as they once believed. And this is something all of us can do. And I feel like if from today's show you get anything, aside from the fact that some bigoted stuff went down this week in Texas, if you get anything from this show besides that, I hope that you get that you can make a difference and that you can reach people politically. If I could get anything to stick in your minds tonight, that would be my one wish. Because right now, we've got a country that can't figure out whether or not they're happy or sad or upset or angry over the First Lady wearing a scarf to a funeral. Because they're not sure if it's appropriate or if it was a political statement or if she just liked the way her hair looked that day. It's sad, folks. It's very sad. We live in a country today where a politician believes it's acceptable to demand people to grovel and disclaim themselves from association with people because they might have something in common. They might be on the issue. We live in an America now where it's okay to put a foreign flag on your desk and then request people pledge to America with a foreign flag on your desk. Whether or not you support that country or our allied relationship with them, a foreign flag on the desk. And requiring you to pledge allegiance to the country, swear fealty to the United States of American government, pledge to it, give yourself to it, swear on it. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, not Israel, and to the republic, not so much, for which it stands, not at all. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, I wish. The Pledge of Allegiance, many on the right have fully embraced as something that's great. And let me tell you, they're not doing it for the wrong reasons, but it is the wrong thing to do. Think about for a second what the Pledge of Allegiance says. I pledge of allegiance to the flag, that's okay, of the United States of America, still fine. And to the republic for which it stands. Literally the government. You are literally pledging allegiance to the government of the United States of America. Many of you take issue with a lot of politicians. You want to pledge yourself to those folks? And then ask yourself, is it such a bad thing that somebody doesn't want to say the pledge? And more importantly, should someone be required to say it, to speak to a politician because of their religion?